Using a 19mm socket, let's go ahead and remove the lug nuts. If your vehicle is equipped with a hubcap, go ahead and grab the hubcap, remove that as well. Grab the wheel, and go ahead and remove that. Using a 10mm socket, we're going to go ahead and remove this 10mm bolt here that's holding our ABS line. Use a 12mm socket to remove this bolt here, holding our front flex hose for our brakes. Use a 32mm socket to remove the spindle nut. We're going to use a 19mm socket on the nut here and a 19mm wrench on this side here. Let's go ahead and remove the nut. Once that's off, repeat for the lower bolt here. Using a 10mm socket, we're going to remove this bolt holding the ABS sensor to the back of the knuckle. I'm going to try and move that sensor. Now ours is stuck a little bit, so we're just going to use a pair of pliers and gently just going to work this a little bit. Just going to gently work this back and forth. Put a little bit of spray or rust penetrant in behind there to try and loosen this up. Just going to work this back and forth until we're able to pull that out. All right, go ahead and pop that out. I'm going to set that aside. You want to make sure that your CV axle or spindle here is loose from the hub. There's a hole right in the middle, or a dimple in the middle of the CV axle. You can use a punch, set it in there, whack it with a hammer. Make sure that this is free inside. If yours is stuck, use some rust penetrant in there. Go ahead and keep on smacking that there a little bit to go ahead and loosen that up. Next, we want to remove the strut and knuckle bolts, the two large bolts here. We're going to go ahead and hit the end here, the threaded end, to punch those out. We're going to use a dead blow hammer here. You don't want to, or not suggested to use a metal hammer because then you could damage the threads. Work the bottom one. Now we're going to grab the caliper and the knuckle and try and work this out from the strut itself. If it seems a little stuck, use that dead blow hammer. Loosen up that rust, get that separated. While we're doing this here, you want to come down and start pushing that CV axle back. Grab it from the back side. And pull that out of the knuckle. right here is where the CV axle goes into your transmission. You want to have a catch can or some towels underneath in case any transmission fluid should come out. Use that pry bar. You can gently try prying. If not, tap that pry bar and then just pry it, and we'll pop that axle out like that. Let's go ahead and pull that axle out. Let's go ahead and take the new axle, slide this up into place. Let's go ahead and slide the axle into the transmission. Now at this point, we have roughly about an inch or so before the CV axle is seated inside the transmission. We can't push it in by hand because it has a C-clip on the end that's going to lock it into place. Next, what we're going to do is use a dead blow hammer on the outside end of the axle, and we're going to tap the axle inward until it pops in. Now what we're going to do is work the axle up into the back of the wheel bearing. Be careful not to damage this toner right here. This is for your ABS. If this gets nicked or damaged, you can ruin the ABS system. Once that axle is lined up, I'm going to go ahead and work this back up, and let's get our bolts started back into the knuckle. Once we get that upper bolt in, go ahead and line up the lower. Work this in. Just work that knuckle around until that bolt pops on in there. And get that bolt in. Next, we can go ahead and get our nuts started on here. Get those threaded on a few threads. And then we'll get those snug down. Go ahead and torque these down to 80 foot-pounds. Let's go ahead and install our ABS bracket right here. Get our bolt started. Now we'll go ahead and install our ABS sensor. All right, once we get those bolts started, let's go ahead and snug these down. Install your bolt for your flex line here. Once that's in, we'll go ahead and snug that down. install your spindle nut. We'll snug that down. We're going to install 2 lug nuts. I'm going to torque down the spindle nut to 134 foot-pounds. Remove the lug nuts. Using a chisel tip, we're going to go ahead and dimple the spindle nut. Go ahead and lift your wheel up and get that installed. If your vehicle is equipped with the hubcap, you want to find the notch right here for your valve stem to poke through. Line that up with your valve. And we'll get your lug nuts started by hand. Once we get these on, we'll go ahead and snug them down. Let's go ahead and torque our wheel down to 80 foot-pounds.